He wore a hero's star and officer's insignia. He was welcomed at checkpoints and waved through without question. No one suspected that beneath the polished uniform hid not a defender, but an imposter sent on a mission that could have changed the course of history. His coat was custom-made. Inside was a hidden compartment for a weapon unknown to the Red Army. She called him her husband, but she knew that if he failed, she was ordered to eliminate him first. Cold, calculating, with no room for error. Together, they didn't just cross the front line. They came within reach of the very heart of the country. And only a twist of fate, one that could easily have gone the other way, saved the nation from disaster. Who gave a criminal fake medals? Why did he carry photographs that could have destroyed him instantly? And why did the German command believe in success until the very end, even after their agents were already behind bars? The answers are inside this video, but the biggest revelation comes near the end. Because in this story, nothing is what it seems. The autumn of 1944 brought a grim reality to the Third Reich. Soviet forces pressed westward. Allied bombers darkened German skies daily, and the thousand-year empire crumbled month by month. In his bunker, a controversial German leader faced the inevitable collapse of his vision. Yet desperation breeds dangerous creativity. Within the shadowy corridors of the Zeppelin Center, intelligence officers crafted their most desperate gambit yet. If conventional warfare had failed, perhaps a single precise strike could shift the balance. Remove the Soviet leader, and maybe, just maybe, the Eastern Front would collapse into chaos. The date circled on their calendars held symbolic power. November 7th, 1944. Revolution Day. When Moscow's elite would gather in Red Square, vulnerable and exposed. The irony wasn't lost on the planners, using the anniversary of one revolution to spark another. But such a mission required someone special, not a typical agent or trained operative. They needed someone who could disappear into Soviet society, someone whose criminal instincts matched their desperation. They needed Pyotr Tavrin. Pyotr Shiloh, that was his real name, though identity had always been fluid for this man. Born into poverty, raised by the streets, shaped by a criminal underworld that taught him survival above all else. Prison became his university, escape attempts his graduation exercises. By 1942, Shiloh had accumulated an impressive resume of failures and resurrections. Theft, fraud, prison breaks, a pattern of capture and cunning that caught German attention. When the Wehrmacht overran his prison camp, they found not a broken Soviet prisoner, but a survivor willing to reinvent himself once again. The transformation from criminal to provocateur happened gradually. First, small betrayals, fellow prisoners who trusted him too easily. Then larger roles, infiltrating resistance cells, earning his captors' respect through ruthless efficiency. The Gestapo appreciated talent wherever they found it, but the Germans saw something more in Shiloh than just another turncoat. His ability to assume new identities, to blend into Soviet society, to inspire trust even as he planned betrayal. These skills made him perfect for their grandest deception. They would remake him as Major Pyotr Tavrin, decorated hero of the Soviet Union, returning from classified missions behind enemy lines. The man who emerged from German training camps bore little resemblance to the petty criminal who'd entered them. New scars suggested battlefield wounds. New mannerisms suggested officer breeding. New documents suggested a heroic past that existed only in carefully constructed files. Yet beneath the surface, the same opportunistic instincts remained. The same willingness to betray anyone for personal survival. Every great deception requires supporting players, and Lydia Shilova understood her role perfectly. Recruited in 1942, she'd shown an aptitude for both radio operations and cold-blooded calculation that impressed her German handlers. Her cover story intertwined with Tavrin's in believable ways: a wartime romance, a hasty marriage, a wife dutifully following her husband's postings. But beneath this conventional narrative lay something more complex. Was their relationship genuine affection born from shared danger, or merely another layer of performance in an elaborate charade? The Germans had given her dual responsibilities. Primary, serve as Tavrin's radio operator, maintaining contact with Berlin throughout their mission. Secondary, eliminate Tavrin if the operation collapsed. A wife and a killer, bound together by circumstances that blurred every line between truth and deception. Her training in radio operations proved meticulous. Hours spent memorizing frequencies, call signs, emergency protocols. But her psychological preparation ran deeper. The ability to maintain perfect composure while planning intimate betrayal required a special kind of detachment. As their departure date approached, Shilova demonstrated the same adaptability that had attracted German attention. She could shift from loving wife to cold professional to desperate refugee, depending on what each moment demanded. In the deadly theater they were about to enter, such flexibility might mean the difference between success and exposure. The final preparations unfolded in occupied Riga, where German specialists crafted every detail of the deception. Tavrin's uniform received careful aging, the right amount of wear to suggest active service without appearing shabby. His medals told a story of bravery under fire, each decoration earned through fictional heroics that nevertheless felt authentic. Most crucial was the specialized coat ordered from a local tailor, a seemingly innocent garment that concealed a hidden holster designed for their unique weapon. The tailor, unbeknownst to the Germans, maintained contact with Soviet intelligence. This single detail would later provide the first thread that unraveled their entire operation. The weapon itself represented German engineering desperation made manifest. A miniaturized launcher, disguised as an ordinary object, capable of firing a single devastating projectile. Electric ignition would ensure reliability. Compact design would aid concealment. One shot to change history. Tavrin's body bore additional modifications. Carefully placed scars to simulate battlefield wounds, dental work to match Soviet military records, even subtle changes to his fingerprints. Every physical detail had to withstand scrutiny from SMERSH counterintelligence. Yet perhaps the most impressive preparation involved psychological conditioning. Both agents spent weeks in character, never breaking their assumed identities even in private moments. The line between performance and reality grew increasingly thin as November 7th approached. October brought the final green light from Berlin. Weather conditions looked favorable, Soviet air defenses showed routine patterns, and intelligence reports suggested their target would indeed appear at the Revolution Day celebrations. The flight into Soviet territory began smoothly enough. Their pilot, experienced in clandestine operations, navigated by moonlight and instinct through heavily defended airspace. For hours, everything proceeded according to plan. Then Soviet fighters appeared on the horizon. The engagement lasted minutes, but felt eternal. Cannon fire punctured their aircraft's fuel tanks, damaged navigation equipment, forced an emergency landing far from their intended drop zone. Instead of reaching Moscow's outskirts undetected, they found themselves stranded in hostile territory with compromised equipment and dwindling options. The motorcycle with sidecar, cached for exactly such emergencies, became their lifeline. If they could reach the capital before their absence was noticed, the mission might still succeed. Speed became everything, racing against time, against discovery, against the growing certainty that something had gone catastrophically wrong. But every mile deeper into Soviet territory increased their vulnerability. Radio checkpoints monitored movement, patrol units verified documentation, and somewhere behind them, search parties scoured the crash site for evidence of their true purpose. Senior Lieutenant Kozlov had seen enough suspicious travelers to trust his instincts. The Major's papers looked perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. His wife's nervousness could indicate fatigue from travel, or something more troubling. When he ordered a thorough search of their belongings, professional curiosity transformed into genuine alarm. The specialized weapons defied easy explanation. Soviet forces didn't issue such equipment to their officers. The photographs with German personnel contradicted their cover story entirely. Most damning, radio equipment suggested capabilities far beyond what any legitimate Soviet couple would possess. Shilova's composure cracked first under interrogation. Years of psychological preparation couldn't overcome the reality of capture, the certainty of exposure, the knowledge that their elaborate deception had collapsed at a roadside checkpoint. Her confession began as a trickle of admissions, but quickly became a flood of details. Tavrin maintained his silence longer, clinging to their cover story even as evidence mounted against them. Perhaps he believed his criminal cunning could still salvage the situation. Perhaps old habits of deflection and denial remained stronger than training. But eventually, even his resistance crumbled. The revelation stunned their captors. Not professional assassins, but a criminal and his accomplice, armed with German weapons and tasked with the most audacious terror plot in Soviet history. Their amateurish execution had paradoxically made their mission more terrifying. What if competent agents had attempted the same operation? SMERSH counterintelligence approached the captured agents with methodical precision. Each detail of their confession required verification. Each claim demanded corroboration. The scope of German planning became clear only gradually, through painstaking reconstruction of training, preparation, and infiltration methods. Shilova proved the more cooperative subject, perhaps understanding that honesty offered her only chance for leniency. She described the radio protocols, the emergency procedures, the psychological conditioning designed to maintain their cover under pressure. Her technical knowledge impressed even veteran interrogators. Tavrin's admissions came harder, extracted through patient questioning rather than voluntary confession. His criminal background made deception second nature, but the overwhelming evidence left little room for manipulation. Slowly, reluctantly, he revealed the full scope of their mission: the target, the timing, the weapon designed for a single devastating attack. The interrogators faced a troubling realization. These weren't master spies whose capture represented a significant counterintelligence victory. They were desperate criminals whose success would have required more luck than skill. The very amateurishness of their operation made it potentially more dangerous than professional alternatives. But their capture also presented an unprecedented opportunity. If Berlin believed the mission remained active, Soviet intelligence could exploit that misconception for purposes far beyond simple counterespionage. SMERSH leadership recognized the captured agents' value extended far beyond their failed assassination plot. With Shilova's radio equipment and call signs, they could maintain contact with Berlin, creating the illusion that Operation Fog remained active and successful. The deception required careful choreography. Messages to German handlers had to sound authentic while providing false information about Soviet defensive preparations, troop movements, and leadership routines. Each transmission walked a delicate line between believability and strategic misdirection. Shilova's cooperation proved essential to the operation's success. Her intimate knowledge of radio protocols, her familiarity with German handling procedures, her understanding of expected communication patterns made the deception possible. Whether motivated by genuine remorse or simple survival instincts, she helped craft messages that satisfied German expectations while serving Soviet purposes. The false reports painted a picture of steady progress toward their November objective. Fictional reconnaissance missions provided German intelligence with detailed misinformation about Red Square security arrangements. Invented conversations with imaginary contacts suggested a growing network of collaborators awaiting activation. Berlin's responses revealed their continued faith in the operation. Encouragement flowed through coded transmissions. Additional funding authorizations appeared. Backup contingency plans arrived for operations extending into 1945. The Germans remained completely convinced their agents operated freely within Soviet territory. From Berlin's perspective, Operation Fog represented their last, best chance to alter the war's trajectory through a single decisive strike. Radio transmissions from their agents confirmed steady progress, detailed reconnaissance, and growing operational confidence. German leadership allowed themselves cautious optimism as November 7th approached. Hans Greif, coordinating the operation from Berlin, maintained regular contact with his field agents. Their reports suggested not only feasibility, but genuine likelihood of success. Security arrangements appeared manageable, escape routes seemed viable, and local support looked promising. Even collaborationist leaders like General Vlasov expressed confidence in the operation's potential. If successful, it might fracture Soviet unity, create leadership chaos, perhaps even spark the uprising they'd long predicted would follow Stalin's removal. Meanwhile, Soviet counterintelligence continued their elaborate charade. Each German query received carefully crafted responses designed to maintain the illusion while extracting maximum intelligence about enemy planning. The radio game expanded beyond simple deception into active counter-espionage, identifying German assets and methods through Berlin's own communications. As November 7th arrived and passed without incident, German handlers received reports of last-minute complications requiring postponement. Weather delays, security changes, equipment malfunctions, plausible explanations for why their crucial mission required additional time and preparation. Through the winter of 1944 and into spring of 1945, Operation Fog continued to exist only in German imagination and Soviet manipulation. Regular radio transmissions maintained the fiction that Tavrin and Shilova remained at large, steadily preparing for their crucial mission. The reports grew increasingly elaborate as months passed. Detailed intelligence about Soviet defensive positions, fictional meetings with potential collaborators, imaginary reconnaissance of alternative targets. Each transmission provided German intelligence with carefully crafted misinformation while maintaining operational credibility. Berlin's faith in their agents never wavered. Even as the military situation deteriorated, even as Soviet forces approached German borders, the promise of a single decisive strike continued to inspire desperate hope among Nazi leadership. The psychological impact of believing success remained possible, sustained morale long past rational justification. Soviet handlers recognized the broader intelligence value of their deception. German responses revealed planning methods, communication protocols, and strategic priorities that informed broader counterintelligence operations. Operation Fog became a window into enemy thinking at the highest levels. By early 1945, German transmissions began reflecting the regime's approaching collapse. Increasingly desperate instructions, alternative targeting suggestions, and contingency planning for post-war scenarios revealed a leadership grappling with inevitable defeat while clinging to impossible hopes. April 1945 brought the end of Operation Fog as suddenly as it had begun. Soviet forces surrounded Berlin, German command structure collapsed, and radio transmissions from the crumbling Reich became sporadic and confused. The last message from Berlin arrived on April 20th, a brief query about operational status that received no response. Within days, the bunker fell silent forever, its occupants dead or scattered. The radio game that had sustained German hopes for 6 months ended not with dramatic revelation, but with simple silence. Tavrin and Shilova, imprisoned since their capture the previous October, learned of their handler's fate through prison rumors and guard conversations. The regime that had trained them, equipped them, and sent them on their impossible mission had ceased to exist. Whatever promises of rescue or exchange might have sustained their hopes had vanished with the Reich itself. Soviet counterintelligence officers concluded their elaborate deception with professional satisfaction. Operation Fog had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, not as an assassination plot, but as a counterintelligence triumph that had misled enemy leadership for months while providing invaluable intelligence about German methods and priorities. The captured agents faced a different reality. Their value to Soviet intelligence had ended with Berlin's fall. Whatever clemency their cooperation might have earned was balanced against the severity of their original crime. The legal machinery of Soviet justice prepared to render final judgment. 1952 brought the conclusion of legal proceedings that had dragged on for years. Both Tavrin and Shilova faced capital charges for their attempted assassination of the Soviet leader. Despite Shilova's cooperation with the radio game, despite her claims of coercion and manipulation, the court found insufficient grounds for leniency. Shilova maintained until the end that she had been an unwilling participant, pressured by circumstances beyond her control. Her radio expertise had made her valuable to German handlers, but she insisted her heart remained loyal to the Soviet Union. The court remained unconvinced by arguments that effectively made everyone a victim of wartime circumstance. Tavrin showed less inclination toward dramatic final statements. His criminal background had prepared him for harsh consequences, and his collaboration with enemy intelligence admitted no innocent interpretation. He faced his fate with the same opportunistic pragmatism that had defined his entire life. The sentences were carried out quietly, without publicity or fanfare. Operation Fog ended not with the dramatic conclusion German planners had envisioned, but with bureaucratic finality in a Moscow prison. 2 lives extinguished for a mission that had been doomed from its inception. Operation Fog earned recognition as one of SMERSH's most successful counterintelligence operations, not for preventing an assassination that had been accomplished at a simple checkpoint, but for the months of strategic deception that followed. Over 3 years, Soviet counterintelligence conducted 181 separate radio games with enemy agents, but none matched Fog's duration and complexity. The operation revealed the psychological dimension of intelligence warfare. German leadership's desperate need to believe in miracle solutions made them vulnerable to elaborate deceptions that professional skepticism might have detected. Hope became a weapon that Soviet handlers wielded with devastating effectiveness. Modern analysts studying Operation Fog note its demonstration of how amateur criminals could nearly accomplish what professional agents might have failed to achieve. Tavrin and Shilova's very incompetence made them harder to detect initially. They didn't fit standard profiles, didn't follow expected patterns, didn't behave like trained operatives. Their failure saved more than one life. Had their mission succeeded, the resulting chaos might have extended the war, cost countless additional lives, perhaps altered the entire post-war settlement. A routine checkpoint inspection by a suspicious lieutenant prevented catastrophic consequences none of them could have imagined. The fog of war conceals many secrets, but Operation Fog itself has become visible to history. A testament to the thin line between success and failure, between amateur audacity and professional competence, between the grand gestures that shape nations and the quiet vigilance that preserves them. Some operations succeed through careful planning and flawless execution. Others fail through simple bad luck and human error. Operation Fog reminds us that in intelligence work, as in life, the smallest details often determine the largest outcomes. The motorcycle that stopped at a Smolensk checkpoint carried more than 2 desperate agents. It carried the weight of history itself, balanced precariously between success and disaster. Thanks to one alert officer's professional instincts, history continued on its intended course. But the question remains: how many other motorcycles have passed unchecked through the fog of time?